I'm Natalie, golf fitness trainer, and this is the ProFit Golf channel. This is my channel where I show you everything golf fitness and all the golf exercises you need to improve your game. Today's video is how to unlock your hips for more and better rotation in the golf swing. So if we really want to improve our hip rotation in the golf swing, we have to improve our hip internal rotation and our hip external rotation. They're the two movements that happen at the hip joints during the golf swing, and it's really important that we achieve a range of motion in each of them. You don't need to worry too much about the technicalities, just know and try and understand that hip internal rotation is whenever a joint moves closer to the midline of the body. So if I take my setup, my right hip into the backswing has moved closer to the midline of my body. We class that as internal rotation. The left hip here would have moved externally, pushing away from the midline of the body. And the same is true in the downswing. So my left hip would have turned internally, my right hip has moved externally. So both those movements are happening during every single golf swing. As a general rule, most players struggle with the internal rotation element because typically there's less space available in the joint and it's a harder movement to try and achieve. So this exercise we're about to do here, called hip circles, ensures that you get hip internal and external rotation of both hips while you're doing it. To do this exercise, we need to get down on the mat again. So I'm going to take my posture on hands and knees. And as we've done in previous videos, we start with a neutral spine here, which is what we class as a roughly straight spine. So in other words, I'm not excessively dipped and not excessively curved. So make sure you're somewhere in the middle. The aim of the game with this exercise is to allow the hip to move in a circular motion, inwards and outwards. However, it's a really difficult sensation to feel, so we're going to imagine and picture everything from the knee instead. My best point and little tip with this exercise, if you imagine the knee has a pen or a pencil attached to it, you're going to draw as wide a circle as you can, inwards and outwards, with that pen on the knee. So taking your strong setup again, neutral spine, core relatively braced for some stability. Our first movement is to take the knee into or towards and touching the forearm. You're going to hold that for a second. This is hip flexion. Again, an important movement within the pelvis. And then I'm going to take my knee out to the side like a dog has a wee. You're going to hold this for a split second. This is quite a tricky part of the movement. Then draw that knee in a circular motion round the back until it's roughly level with the glute. At this point, you'll feel a little dip here in the lower back. That's absolutely fine. That's the pelvis moving to help you get that range of motion. Hold for a split second and then draw the knee back to the start where you started. So that's one circle all the way in. We're now going to draw the circle out. So I'm going to extend my knee up towards the glute and hold for a second. Open the hip or the knee out and sweep it round and high, ideally touching on the elbow or the forearm and placing it back again. So let's look at this movement as one. It's quite hard to see in its individual parts. In, out, sweep around the back, level to the glute, back to the start. Extend to the glute, open out, sweep all the way around. That's one rep. Now this is quite a tricky exercise. I'm already a bit red, I'm out of breath. So you're going to try and make each motion as smooth and as stable as possible. The aim of the game here is to achieve the greatest range of motion you can through the hip joint, through the knee, to ensure that we're then creating more internal and external rotation. So what we don't want to see is any changes of posture or any cheating to try and achieve that range. So the most common thing is people get stuck here, they bend at the arms to try and get the leg and the knee back round because it's quite tricky to maintain posture and create this circular motion at the same time. Lastly, what we don't want to do is deviate too much through the spine. As we create our rotations, you'll find that you get little dips at certain points here, Try not to over-exaggerate this where we lose the core stability. The core still needs to be working hard in order for you to move this hip in isolation. So as you're creating these circular motions, you should feel like it's only this hip working. But do this as slow as possible. Imagine in your head that the knee is pushing through dense air, or it's pushing through treacle. So it's tricky for the body to achieve these positions and these ranges of motion. This should be a really difficult exercise. It's not easy to achieve that circular motion, that internal and external rotation. So do this as slowly and deliberately as possible. Exercise number 2, we're still going to work along those lines of internal and external rotation, but we now put this into a standing posture. So this replicates a lot more of what we would need to achieve within the golf swing. You want something to lean on, a wall, squat rack, something you're not going to push over. And all we're going to do is I'm going to lean firstly onto the wall, and we're looking to be stride lengths away. You may need to manipulate this as you go along, but you just need enough room to get some knee clearance. So the aim of the game here is we're going to rotate on the standing leg, not the leg that moves in the air, the one that is standing on the floor. So first step, you're going to raise the knee nice and high. This keeps this leg nice and straight in an extended position through the hip, which again is a position that we see as you come into impact. From here, I'm going to drive this heel behind me as far as I can, which will push me forwards into this kind of hinge single leg position. Now, if I just take my hand and place it on my hip bone here so you can see, my first move is I'm going to rotate towards my leg. So I'm going to turn my pelvis or my left hip and my right hip towards the left, like this. As a result, this leg will kind of drop and it's turned a little bit to the left with me. I can now feel a rotation on this left-hand side of the hip, and then I'm going to make the opposite movement. So I'll rotate away, and I'm opening back out here towards the camera. So you're dropping in, you can feel that on the hip bone, rotating towards, and then rotating away. This leg will just go wherever the pelvis takes you, so you don't need to worry about that leg rotating on its own. So there we have 2 exercises to unlock your hips, reduce the stiffness and achieve better rotation in the golf swing. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button, subscribe so you can see all content on this channel, and don't forget, if you've got questions about golf fitness, golf exercises, or something about your golf swing, leave a comment in the section below. I'll see you next time with a brand new video on the Pro Fit Golf channel.